Hey, you guys, welcome back to the Just Keep It Real podcast. I am your host, Makayla, and thank you guys for tuning in to another episode. Okay, guys, just a brief introduction. This is the beginning of our season two, and we're going to kick things off right. I know you guys have a lot of questions about where I've been, what's been going on, but we'll get to that another time, I promise. So, we're going to start things off with introducing my very personal guest and my very good friend, Mr. Jordan. Jordan, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm blessed. I'm doing great. Doing great. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for coming onto the show and being a part of today. So I just want to give you time to introduce yourself, kind of give people like a brief introduction about you, what do you do, and everything like that.
Sure. Again, thank you for having me. I am going into my third year in university studying urban design. I love being outside. I love gardening, engaging in and enjoying the Most High's creation. Um, I like, studying scripture, reading the Bible, learning more about God, and learning more about God with other people. And yeah, yeah. That's a little bit about me.
All right, well, that is absolutely awesome, and it's great to hear that. You enjoy doing it on your spare time. I feel like everybody should be just doing that, but we live in a very very crooked world, a very wicked society. So not everybody has the same mindset as you, and I'm glad to hear that. You enjoy doing that, and that's how it should be. You should be enjoy getting to know more about God because at the end of the day, He is the one who we need in our everyday lives.
Amen.
So, guys, we're gonna kick the episode off. So today is we're gonna be talking about accountability. So, you guys, everybody knows, everybody has their own idea what accountability is and their own definition. So, Jordan, what is your version? What do you think accountability is?
When I think about accountability, I think about because, like, you can hold yourself accountable and then you can be held accountable to other people. So really, it is just let me think. It's really just having an idea of how you're acting. It's taking inventory of your behavior. It's assessing yourself, knowing who you are, how you're behaving, and if you need to change it. It's having an objective view of yourself and your actions.
That's a good endpoint. And I want to add to that. I also feel like accountability is being like you said, being account of your behavior. But that's also I want to add like being aware of your behavior, recognizing that your behavior is wrong before anybody else has the opportunity to tell you anything. I feel like with being accountable, you have to understand that not everybody is going to check you, and you got to get to the point of like, come on now, this is 2024. We're all grown. Nobody should have to tell you, hey, I think you were wrong. Hey, I think you need to change that. Nobody should be telling you that. If you're grown, you should have that ability. You should have that self consciousness to think like, yes, I do need to take a look at myself. I do need to reevaluate what I just done. And you shouldn't have to wait to somebody else to tell you to hold you accountable before you hold yourself accountable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So to kind of go into a little bit deeper about what is accountability, what would you say was your first experience with dealing with accountability?
Oh, that's a good one. We're really looking at like self accountability, right? Because I know my mom's always telling me about myself. So
Okay, so when was your first experience? Okay, we can do it a two-part. What was your first experience holding yourself accountable, and when was your first experience somebody holding you accountable?
okay. For the self accountability, I really began to like see myself more objectively. Probably about maybe a year ago, about 2 years ago. I really started to check my behavior. Um, in this more specific instance, it would be times where I would be talking more than I need to, because one thing I was learning is that I don't always have to say something. I don't always have to prove myself with my words. If I'm proving myself, I'm proving myself with my actions. I don't need to say anything all the time. So when I started to realize in some settings I'd be talking to people and they wouldn't really listen to what I was saying, first I wanted to get upset, but then I had to be like, well, you know what, be wise with your words. So that's when I started to hold myself accountable in that regard to be like, you know what, I don't need to say anything right now. Or if I'm somewhere where people know more than me, I'm at work and these people are more experienced than me, I don't need to say anything. I'm in class and I'm doing work. I don't need to say nothing. The teacher knows more than me. Let me do this work and learn. So that's when I started to hold myself accountable. That's just one instance where I started holding myself accountable. But as far as someone else telling me about myself, oh man, let me think. Because I have a lot of examples to pick from. I'm just trying to think of the right one to say out here. Okay, here's a good one. God Himself. I remember there was a one time I prayed, um, show me myself, show me who I really am, and He gave me this dream, and basically what He showed me was in the dream, you treat other people better than you treat your family and you treat your loved ones and you treat your spiritual family. So I saw that dream. I'm like, dang, it's really humbling having someone tell you about yourself. And I've had my mom tell me about myself a lot of times. I've had, a few other people, but having that dream and seeing like, dang, this is what I'm doing. It's really humbling, to see yourself for who you really are. So whenever I get that feedback and being held accountable by other people, I'm just like, okay, I know I need to work on, and let me just start working on it. So yeah, that's my experience.
Okay, those are actually really, really good experiences. That kind of takes us into our next question. When you were being held accountable, how did you handle it? And also how did you respond to it? And what was your outcomes of responding? Like, how did the other person receive you being accountable?
Mm-hmm. I'll go back with some examples with my mother multiple times. It would used to be, when I was younger, I'd have a kind of a defensive attitude, a defensive spirit. Because when you're young, you think you know everything, and I'm
True.
still
True.
young. I'm not old. I'm 19, but
Hey, we keeping it real over here. That's what
right,
we do.
exactly, keeping it real. So I don't have it all
Keeping
figured
it real.
out. But in my short time here, I'm like, I'm looking back. I had kind of a defense up where it's like every time someone would tell me about myself, I would feel like I have to give an excuse on why I'm behaving that way. But as I got older, and in more recent years, probably about 2 years ago, it got to the point to where it's like, you know what, you're not perfect. You got stuff you need to work on. So just be quiet and take it. And that's why I do it. It stings, it hurts because someone tell you something about yourself. It's like, dang, I'm like that. I'm like that, man. So they tell you about yourself. I'm like, okay, okay. I tell them thank you. I tell them appreciate it. Thank you for bringing that out, and just say I'm going to work on it. And in some cases, when I'm interacting with the person often, I would always ask. I'm like, okay, if I'm in a situation where I act a certain way and I'm trying to fix it, I would ask in that time, am I doing better with this? How am I doing with this? Am I acting the same way or am I changing? So I really take the accountability. I assess myself, and then I just start to improve, and making sure I'm being held accountable throughout that improvement process. And was there another part of your question?
So also, how does the when you make the changes, what do you are you looking for feedback from others saying, I'm recognizing you're starting to hold yourself accountable, or you're just mainly like, what, I'm not doing this for others. I'm doing this for me.
Primarily and always, I do it for me. I'm used to kind of taking, I'm kind of a loner sometimes. And so I'm used to kind of being introspective. That's why I like being outside and stuff a lot, because it gives me time to be introspective and think back on a lot of things. So a lot of the time I learn, especially as a man, you're gonna have to put yourself in check sometimes, and you're gonna have to be the one tracking your progress and making sure you're doing what you need to do. So I'm learning, I'm still learning, but I've learned that I need to check my own progress, hold myself accountable. And the best way I do that is staying in the word, knowing what measure I need to measure up to. And if I'm not measuring up to that, then I need to do something different. But, it's always welcome when I'm interacting with other people and we know what's going on. I always welcome that feedback also. And I just, use wisdom on who I take it from.
That is very, very good. So I'm gonna add with yours. So how my first experience with dealing with accountability versus like myself and somebody else. To keep it short, my first experience with being held accountable was when I was around 12 years old. I was held accountable by an elderly person, and what she says, like, what people don't understand. Like when you listen, you gotta listen to your elders because they be dropping knowledge on you.
Mm-hmm.
You don't even be knowing it, but it's just like it's true. And they say when you have problems, talk to the older people because they've been through a lot more than you, and they can make you. They can put things in perspective for you.
Mm-hmm.
So my first experience was like I said, 12 years old. I'm not gonna lie, I was a heathen. We being real. This is the Just Keep It Real show. So this is what we gonna do. I was a heathen at 12. I was a heathen. And it was, I remember it was an elderly woman that went to the church I was attending at the time. And I was just, like I said, a heathen, very disrespectful, very doing everything else. But how I would treat somebody outside, like I would, like you said, I would treat my family different than I would treat my other people. So one particular day, she just heard me like going off on this lady in the store because it was me, her, my mom, and her daughter, and her. And I was just going off on her, just snapping back, being very disrespectful. And it's like when we got to church, I was like this sweet little angel. Like, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir. Oh, really? Like, I was like completely opposite. So one particular day, we were all like running around the sanctuary, just, being kids, being bad. And she pulled me to the side and she told me, she was just like, you're a hypocrite. And I was just like, what?
Mm-hmm.
How? Like, of course, me being 12, I didn't really know what a hypocrite was. So, of course, me, I smart. I'm like, what you mean a hypocrite? What is that? And she was just like, a hypocrite is somebody who who says one thing but does another. She's like, have you ever heard the saying, practice what you preach? I said, yeah, I've heard that a lot of times. So she's like, you don't practice what you preach. She's like, you come in here and you act all sweet, you respect everybody, but I just saw you disrespect somebody the day before. She's like, how can you do that? And I was just like, no, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't receive that well.
Mm-hmm.
I took it as a harsh way. I took it like, a blow to my self esteem and to my ego. So I didn't respond the right way. If anything, they gave me more ammunition in my tank. But as I got older, I understood what she was doing, making me realize at a young age, you can't do one thing and say you're doing another thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't tell somebody, oh, I'm a nice, loving person, and I make this big statement of what I do, and then somebody sees me in the store, like I said, pretty much going off on somebody. Then yes, that I would be a hypocrite. So that time I didn't receive well, but as I got older and I understood why, because me and her eventually had another conversation as when I got older, and I went back to her and I apologized to her because so what, you were trying to let me know something at a young age, to don't grow up doing this. Don't grow up saying one thing and you live in another way. That's not right. Number one. And number two, that's not what God would want us to do. So I went back and I told her, I appreciate you telling me that because you corrected me out of love because you saw that I'm not that person. I'm really not that person.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually, I mean, of course, I went back, like I said, I apologized to her and I took it. And then now going forward, I make sure I'm very cautious of what I do. Not just because of I'm being a Christian and I'm a believer of Christ, but just because I want the life that I live to be an example of what God has commanded us to do. I want my life to line up with His word.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very cautious of what I do because that's what people are easily looking for somebody to say. Oh, well, you said you're a Christian, but look at you. Look, they're looking for a reason. They're looking for a reason to say something to you. So why give them a reason?
Right.
So another one where I had when I had to hold myself accountable is like I said, them younger years of Makayla. She, like I said, Makayla was a heathen growing up. She was a heathen, but I would say I was a little bit older. I was around your age, about 19, 20. I
Mm-hmm.
was entering my freshman year of college, and I held myself accountable because at this point I had just transitioned. And I was going to another church, and at the church I was going to, it was just like it just like it put things in perspective. Like I started like I wasn't even saved at this time, and I was already feeling conviction. It's because the people I was surrounded by were actually living what they were preaching. Like their lifestyle matched what was being preached. And when I got around other people, and I started, engaging more into it, I wanted to know more about Christ. Like, if anything, I was very like, not I wouldn't say intrigued, But it's like it started making me wonder, like I don't. It started putting things in perspective. Like, do I really want to continue living this life? Like, what's so good about the life I'm living now compared to what they got? So I went out with a group of friends one night, and I tried to like interact with them the way they were interacting. I'm not gonna lie, they were dancing. I wanted to dance too, so I'm trying to fit in with the crowd, and I'm just like It was just there was no connection there. And then at this point, I was like, I do praise dancing, so an opportunity was open for me to be able to be a dancer. To praise dance. So I'm just like, how? And then like that conviction hit me. I'm just like, well, how am I gonna praise dance here and dance with them now? So I held myself accountable, and I was just like,
Mhm.
I can't do that. I have to choose. I said, which more is gonna benefit me in the long run? Having a good time now or benefiting the kingdom?
Mhm.
So at that time, I was like, you know what? I made the conscious decision to stop. It wasn't easy.
Mhm.
Let's be real. It's stopping something you do is never easy.
No.
But I learned if you have the help of God, it is easy.
Yes.
And God never takes something away from you and doesn't replace it.
Right.
There's always something better He has for you.
Mhm.
It kind of makes me think like obedience is better than sacrifice.
Right.
So me choosing to be obedient was better for me than sacrificing a good time.
Mhm.
But those are like my two experiences with being holding accountability. We're gonna move into the next topic. What things has helped you over time be accountable?
Oh, and you just mentioned one of them in your past previous testimony. There is the word. Help me stay accountable and remember that. And the fact that those scriptures come to mind whenever you are like being tried to do something that you know you shouldn't be doing. That's really helpful. So yeah, one of the things is that keeps me accountable, helps me stay accountable, is having those scriptures on standby. And as I read my Bible, I get like what I want to call it a little medicine cabinet. It's just a whole bunch of little pictures I've made with scriptures. So I just have that on standby, and I can look through that, and it brings certain things to mind because Bible says we're supposed to be keeping His law and His word on our hearts and on our minds 24/7. So that's something I try to do, and of course I slip up. I'm keeping it real, right?
Keeping it real, but this is the real.
Right.
It's a safe space.
Exactly. So but I'm trying, and that is one of the things that helped me. Another thing that helps me stay accountable is just remembering the vision, remembering the big picture. And this kind of ties into what you said earlier too. It's like, how is this going to help me serve the kingdom? How is this going to help me, even just on like a personal perspective? How will this help me achieve my goals? How is this going to benefit me in the long run? And there's little stuff, even with just little behaviors. Is this behavior going to help me be the man of God that I want to be? So
Yeah.
I keep all that in the back of my head when I'm keeping myself accountable. And if I did something, I'm looking back, did I do this right? Well, try the fruit, right? We're supposed to try the fruits. So I
Mm-hmm.
look back at that and see what fruit that made, and would I want someone to do that to me? Because do unto others as you want them to do unto you. So in some regards too, I think, okay, would I be okay if someone did that to me? Or would I be okay if someone did that to my family? Stuff like that. So really just thinking about the bigger picture and thinking about the scriptures, that's what helps me really stay accountable.
That's good. That's good. And then you literally just said what I was gonna say. What things help me be accountable is the word. That's the number one. And I just think about how the word is how sharp it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like it cuts deep.
Yeah.
Like I say, it's like, oh, you don't want everybody. I was saying this yesterday actually. There's no whooping like a whooping from God.
Right.
I feel like that's the worst whooping you can get.
Oh
And
yeah.
I've had many of them. We being real. We
Mm-hmm.
being real. And a lot of people, when I come across people, just throughout the day sometimes, or just people I may have meet online that make, because I recently posted my praise dance video, and I put my testimony on there. People think, after I got saved, that straightened up my life. I was just like, since I've been saved, I've made many mistakes. We being real.
Mm-hmm.
And, one things that helped me over time that became accountable, I just think about where he says in the word, train up in the child in the way they should go. And when they grow old, they should not depart from it.
Mm-hmm.
What kept me accountable is that, I was trained. I was raised in church. So that's all technically I know about life. I may not have had everything in the world, but one thing my parents taught me was God. They taught me about faith. And they brought me to church and they laid that foundation.
Mm-hmm.
But over time, when I was making my mistakes and going through different things, that's one thing that kept me accountable. It was like, at the end of the day, and I always keep this at the back of my mind, and I remind myself this daily. I said, Makala, at the end of the day, one day, that sky's going to crack open.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And you won't have to give an account for what you did. And like either you go back with them or you get left here. Yep. And I'm being honest, we being real. I ain't trying to be here during that tribulation period. I am not trying to be on this earth. Mm-hmm. But I remind myself that daily. I'm just like, one day, that sky's gonna crack open. And am I gonna be ready to go with him? And that's one thing that helps me stay accountable and keeps me grounded. It's like whatever I do for Christ is gonna last. Mm-hmm. Whatever I do now makes the difference. It determines if I'm gonna go back or not. Absolutely. And I think a lot of people, because I just developed this mindset. Some people don't really understand it. Like, why would you want to think like that? I said, because number one, it used to scare me, but it no longer does, because if anything, it's comfort for me. Because listen, my troubles are eventually going to end. Yes. My trials are eventually going to stop. Everything has a stopping point. I said, so I'm only going to go through this for so much before God comes back and gets me, mm-hmm. or I go to see him. I said, eventually, it's going to have a stopping point. Eventually, my trial has an end date. So, if anything, it is scary to think about, because you really just don't know. But I think about how God did not give us the spirit of fear, but the power of love and of a sound mind. Mm-hmm, right. So I can't be fearful of something that's going to come to pass. There's nothing that I can do. But if anything, I could be watching and waiting and preoccupying until he comes.
Right, exactly. Mm-hmm.
So my thing is, it's comforting to me to know that, eventually this is all going to be over. But it keeps me accountable to understanding that you need to make sure whatever you're doing is in alignment with what he wants you to do. Because I don't got time to play.
Right, exactly.
The two worst things that I would ever want to happen to me in my life is, number one, if God comes back and I don't go back with him. Mm-hmm. And number two, if I get to him and he tells me he never knew me. Oh. Those are the two worst things I would ever want to happen in my life. Mm-hmm. And I keep that in my head because it keeps me accountable. It makes me understand that, okay, do you really want to do this? Because the consequences behind this could cause this. Do I really want to pursue this? Because it could do this. And I always revert back to those scriptures, like you said. Always having those scriptures in your mind, it really does make a difference in your life.
That's awesome. And
go ahead. Go ahead. But like I said, it really just makes a difference in my life. And of course, I do other things to help me be accountable. It's just like, getting the people, like, and also it's a good thing to be around good counsel. Mm-hmm. It's like reverting back to the word where he says, surround yourself with godly counsel.
Right.
So I think it's like, you got to have godly counsel and you got to have good counsel. You got to have that. You can't just go to a person and be like, oh, I'm going to tell this person this and this and that. And, they don't give you good wisdom. They don't give you good judgment. And then that clouds you, and they're not really holding you accountable, because I've experienced with people where in the past where I've talked to people about stuff and they agree with me rather than checking me. It's like, you were wrong, this and this in that area. Mm-hmm. So I feel like also keeping myself around people that are they have the same mindset as me. They very much have the same belief as me, because of anything, they're going to hear me and they're going to let me know if I'm wrong. So that's another thing that helps keep me accountable, is just being around those people that can see spiritually and understand things and really see the full picture and be able to recognize where I fall short and be like, you know what, I don't think you got that there. And of course, just not overriding, the spirit. That's another thing I've struggled with, because I think the spirit would check you too.
Yeah.
Maybe like he would definitely check you. I've had that, and then one thing is I've had this, and I've had this experience where I'd be like overriding. I'm like, no, I wasn't wrong. They were wrong. But it's just like that's one thing that's helped me be accountable is just allowing the Holy Spirit to deal with me when I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And having that time to where I'm like, you know what? It's them quiet times where you be really be getting where I be really be getting it because
Right.
that's when I be like, okay, I don't think you were right here, this and that, and then just like replaying the vision and replaying everything in your head, and then that's when. But you have to do this after you've calmed down. But just sitting down in the quiet time after you prayed and allow God to show you where you went wrong, and then at that point, making the decision to be hold yourself accountable, be like, you know what, I agree, I was wrong, and it's all about fixing it after that. But those are just those things, the few things that really help me stay accountable.
That's great. Yeah.
This is another good question. Why is it important to be accountable? Why is it important, Jordan? You want to go? Why do you feel like it's important to be accountable?
Oh, let's see. That's a good question. That's a good
I'm telling you, it's good.
question. You came with these questions, man.
I'm telling you.
Let's see. So it's necessary because if you don't check yourself or if no one checks you, you're just gonna be acting any kind of way, and you'd be hurting people. And a lot of the time, and you could be hurting yourself too. And it's not a lot of the time it's not even like intentional. It's like not even your intention. Like you said with your testimony about how you was acting up in the supermarket, but that elder, she knew that this isn't you. So I'm going to tell you about yourself so you don't keep walking down this path. So accountability is important because it helps you reach your potential. It helps you reach your destination where the Most High wants you. Because it says, I know it's Jeremiah something, I think it's 29, but I'm going to paraphrase, but I know it says, I have plans, to prosper you. I have plans, for a future for you. And
29-11.
Oh, okay. There you go.
29-11. I know that one.
Yeah, no, that's it. Okay, now, okay, thank you. That's it. So I think about that, and I think about how he has these plans for us, but he knows he has to get us to these plans. I was reading Isaiah the other day, or was it? I think it was Isaiah. I think it was Isaiah, and he was talking about the potter and the clay. We all know this, and that molding process. It's painful. It's painful to be molded. It's painful to be moved. But that's us hearing these hard truths about ourselves and being held accountable, so we can reach that. We can reach a destination where the Most High wants us. So it's really important. And it brings to mind another scripture talking about how the Most High, he chastens who he loves. It's like a father. So when I think about that, I'm like, you know what? Accountability is important because, whoever's holding me accountable wants the best for me. And when I hold myself accountable, that's a form of self-love, and not self-love in a selfish new age sense, but self-love in the sense of I want to share this love with other people. And if I'm not acting properly, if I'm not holding myself accountable, I can't be the best person I can be for my parents, for God, for my peers, for my community. So it's a lot really into it, but if I could just kind of sum up everything, it's really just about holding yourself accountable to be the best version of yourself so you can be ready to do the will of God and you can be ready to serve others. That's what it really comes down to when I think about that.
Oh, that I love that response. You literally be taking everything I'm finna say.
Well, one accord with the Spirit.
Yeah, we want a core. That's it. But yes, I feel like it's so important to be accountable. Like you literally just said everything I was gonna say. But to kind of just add to it, not to take too much away from what you said, but I'm just in total agreement. I feel like it is important to be accountable to yourself, because just because, like you said, growing up, people don't check you, you act any kind of way. And it's like that does, like, it hurts, like I say, it hurts people, but it hurts yourself because you being so denial. You be blinded. You be in so much denial to where that you think wrong is right,
Mm-hmm.
and you already see in the world we live in. That's how it's
Mm.
being painted. Right
Right.
is right is wrong, and wrong is right. But the thing is, with nobody being there to tell you that you're wrong, that this is not the right way, you grow up, and then I think about when you create another generation of that,
Yes.
and I think about it in the long run because we already have a generation of people that believe the same thing I just said, but it's just like when you have planted a seed, because I always you planted that seed in another person, and this person goes and plant another seed in another person. Then when you look at it, we got several seeds
Mm-hmm.
in the world that has the same mentality that you have, and it does do nothing but hinders their own growth. You don't grow, you stay, and then I feel like you don't hold yourself accountable. You become the victim. You play the victim all the
Right.
time. It's always the other person. You always got a finger to point to somebody else, but you're not taking the time to look at yourself and be like, you know what, I'm the problem.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the reason why this is this way. It's always, and playing victim can only get you so long, can only get you so far, to where it takes one person to like, hey, get it together, get it together.
Mm-hmm.
And then I said the ending result of you not being accountable and you doing whatever you want to do, acting, treating people any kind of way is when your eyes close forever.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I say I'm telling you I've been having this mindset lately
Yeah.
of just those two scriptures. But it's like it's so true. You not being accountable and you live your life any kind of way, and when you, regardless if you feel like it's not true or not, at the end of the day, his word is true. Heaven and earth is going to pass away, but his word is going to remain.
Mm-hmm.
So his word is not, it's going to come to pass.
Right.
So regardless if you feel like that ain't true, you know when you close your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Because after you die, you go straight to judgment.
Yep.
And then once that book open and you got to give an account of what you did, then it's going to become real for you. Then you'll be like, dang, I should have listened. But it's going to be too late to do coulda, shoulda, woulda.
Right.
And you had plenty of opportunities to take the sound doctrine and hold yourself accountable and get yourself together. We just being real. And like, I have a problem. Like, it's a pet peeve of mine. Like, just not being accountable, because I feel like accountability is important. It has to be a part of it has to be a part of your character. Being accountable to yourself and also being accountable to others. But you can't hold somebody else accountable if you're not holding yourself accountable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You can't do that. But I feel like it's important to be accountable because you have to understand that not everybody is going to love you like that. Like you said, who the father loves, he chastises.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you don't got nobody that love you enough to hold you accountable and you don't know how to hold yourself, find you somebody that can hold you accountable.
Mm-hmm.
Get somewhere where somebody can teach you. I don't know. I'm not going to say that. Being taught how to be accountable, that's hard to do. Let's turn that into a question. Do you feel like being accountable can be taught?
Oh, that's a good question. And
Yeah.
yeah, let me think. Really,
That's a good. I'm telling you, I was like, let's turn this into a question. Do you feel like accountability can be taught?
and you know what? I really don't think so, because this is an inner work thing. This is a spiritual thing. This is something that you would have to pray to be transformed. Because I was at a point where I was blaming everyone else. I was at that point where I was, woe was me. Oh, I got all these problems. I'm hooked on this. I'm not hooked on drugs, none, but just behaviors I don't need to be doing.
Yeah.
We're keeping it real, right? So
we keeping it real. Hey, come on with it.
So
come on with it.
I was blaming everything else, everyone else. Oh, this, that, and the third. But it was just put on my spirit, and I just prayed, like, you know what? I don't have any other options, right? It's the kingdom or nothing. So you know what? Just help me and show me myself so I can improve. So when that happens, you lock in, and then you start realizing, you're not everything. You're not perfect. You get humbled, and then you start walking in humility. That's a big thing about accountability. And I was thinking about that while you were talking a little earlier. And you hit some great points, and that made me think about humility. It's like, in order to have accountability, you need to have humility. You need to know who you are in respect to the Creator, and who you are in, respect to those around you. So having that humility and knowing that, from dust we came and from dust we're going to return, that's important, because when you're humble, then you will be able to be corrected. You'll be able to take that correction, take that accountability. But to get back to that question, I don't think it can be taught by someone. I think you're going to have to go through certain things, and if it's in you, if you start to kind of see a pattern and nothing's changing, then you'll have that light bulb moment and be like, you know what? Nothing's changing. And I blame everybody. You'll be out of words like, I blame everyone. I blame my mom, my dad, my grandparents. I blame the TV. I blame the media. You blame everyone, but nothing's changed. So what's the common denominator here? Well, maybe I should do something different. So I think everyone just needs to get to that point in life where they realize that they have something to do with where they are in life, and that they're not perfect, and that there are some things that need to change. As soon as they figure that out, accountability can start. And the thing about accountability is, of course, you're going to have discernment and wisdom of who you're taking the advice from. But anyone can really hold you accountable if you're humble enough, and if you're wise enough to understand, where people's comments are coming from. Anyone can hold you accountable. And it could be some as superficial as, you wearing something tacky and someone comments on it, and you might immediately want to be like, oh well, they're just being mean, they're just jealous. But then you think about what that person said, and you look in the mirror, and it's like, you know what, these colors really don't go together. So some as superficial as that, I'm just using that as an example. But when you really humble yourself, you start to be able to learn from any situation, and you can use those situations to improve yourself and to hold yourself accountable and see, you know what, I can do this better. So-and-so said this, and I thought he was being mean about it, but no, I really do need to fix that. So humility and coming to a place where you understand you're in control to a certain extent of where you are in life. That's where accountability will come in, but you can't teach that to anybody.
That's true. That's true. And to answer the question, I feel like accountability can be taught, but like you said, not by people.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like God has to be the one to teach you how to be accountable, because at the end of the day, He's the one that holds us accountable.
Right.
And what does He hold us accountable by? His word.
Mm-hmm.
Literally His word. Like, we think about the depth, like the acronym for Bible: basic instructions before leaving earth.
Right. Uh-huh.
That's literally what it is. His word tells us how we should live, how we should act. It even gets to the point to what we should wear.
Mm-hmm.
So just like He holds us accountable by that. So I feel like accountability can be taught, but not by a person.
Right.
God, like I said, you have to go through some things. Like God is really come, like you say, just come by humbling. You being humbled and you understand and responding to the feedback that you're getting. Not by person, but by God. Because at the end of the day, He's the one that sees you inside and out.
Mm-hmm.
He knows more about you than you know about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like it can be taught, but like I said, it's not by people.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. But like, don't go to somebody like, can you teach me how to be accountable? Because that ain't gonna work.
No.
Don't go to people. Listen, audience, we try to tell y'all, don't be going to people saying, well, I heard off the show they say you can teach me. No, we're not saying people can teach you to be accountable. We're saying that it cannot be taught by people. It only can be taught by one person, which is God. He's the only person that has the power to teach you how to be accountable. And when He's teaching you how to be accountable, respond the right way.
Mm-hmm.
So don't go to your friends like, girl, teach me how to be accountable. I'm about to do that. I'm like, oh, that ain't what's going on right.
Above my pay grade.
We ain't there. Y'all, this is the Keep It Real podcast. We can be real. We laugh. We transparent. We cry. This is all about just understanding and we all got to get an understanding. That's in a sense in the world. By all means, get an understanding.
Yeah. Mm.
Got to get an understanding. So that's why we got to explain things different so y'all can understand what we coming from.
Yeah.
Got to understand. Ooh, this is another good one.
Ooh, all right.
Why do you feel like people don't like being held accountable?
Ooh, that's a good one.
See,
You can't win with this one. So um people don't like hearing the truth about themselves. And now I'm not going to sit here and be that one guy, oh, he's talking in the glass house, he's pointing fingers. No, because I don't like hearing the truth about myself. I'm gonna keep it real. I don't like
yeah.
hearing the truth about myself. Even recently, I was talking to my mother and we was talking about, planning. And there'd be some times where I get stressed out and burn out, but that's really my fault. And she was really like saying, some of this is your fault because you're not planning anything. And part of me that one part of me wanted to be like, well, no, it's not my fault. I didn't say nothing. I'm trying not to act on my feelings. I'm working on it. But in my mind, I was like, why is she saying this is my fault? I'm trying to do everything I can. And, I'm working, I'm doing X, Y, and Z. And then it's still my fault. I'm tired. And then that humility kicks in. It's like, you know what? Yeah, no, this is my fault. But it's our flesh. It's ingrained in our flesh nature, our carnal, earthly nature. We don't like hearing the truth about ourselves. So, yeah, that's why people don't like it. And it's up to us to tap into the spirit, tap into God, tap into the spirit, and be like, you know what? I got this feeling. I'm thinking these thoughts in my head that I'm getting mad. Someone's telling me about myself. I'm getting mad, but we don't have to dwell in the flesh, right? We don't have to dwell in those thoughts. We can be at a higher frequency. We can go above that and dwell in the spirit. So that's what the Bible tells us to do, is to walk in the spirit. Sow into the spirit, and you reap spiritual things. You reap good things. So that's what I'm working on. I know that's a lot of people working on it. I'm working on it, especially. I can speak for myself for that. But yeah, that's a big thing, is when someone tells you about yourself, you don't want to hear it. And we tend to see ourselves in a better light than we actually are. I see, I see myself, and I had problems where I was, pretentious. I thought, oh, I'm better, or I'm good at this. They didn't do that in their project. I did that in my project, so I'm doing better. No, sit down, sit down. So yeah, and that's something I work on. I battle with. So I get it. That's why I don't like being held accountable. It's because people telling you about yourself, but you got to hear it. So it's just, again, where you're gonna dwell on the spirit, you're gonna dwell on the flesh while you are destroying yourself. Because you stay in the flesh, you stay in your earthly nature, you're gonna be destroying yourself. Because you sow in the flesh, you reap corruption, you reap death. Sow into the spirit, you reap life, you reap eternal things. So it's staying in that walk, it's staying in that mindset of the spirit, and to overcome those thoughts of the flesh.
Oh, that is such a good point. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna add to that. I love that. I just love that thought. It's really good to hear that, and you had some great points in there. So my thing is why I feel like people, like you said, people don't like that. They don't like to hear the truth about themselves. But I want to add to that. I feel like why people don't like being held accountable is because they like what they do.
Oh, yeah.
They like what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't think nothing's wrong with it. And they don't understand why you're mad about what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to say, like, people don't like being held accountable. Even when you tell them the truth, they don't like it. They're saying, what? But I have so much fun doing what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have so much pleasure. I have such a thrill getting, and like, I'm not gonna lie, before I got saved, I had that same mindset. I did not like being held accountable because I liked what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
I liked the way it felt. I liked the feeling I got from it. And I was just listening to something today about get out your feelings, since you brought that up. Like, get out your feelings. I was in my feelings. And that's something I'm still struggling with. I feel like a lot of stuff you say is like I'm dealing with the same thing, with
Mm-hmm.
getting out my feelings and, letting go of that. But the reason why I feel like, like I said before I got saved, I didn't like being held accountable because, like I said, I liked what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
I liked the thrill it gave me. I felt like what I was getting out of what I was doing, the pleasure, whatever I got from it, it don't matter what I was doing. Whatever I got from it, I liked it. And I feel like nothing could take that place of that.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, when your eyes come open and you see that, you know what, you know what, you're right. You're right. This is not beneficial to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? And I'm gonna make that conscious decision to change.
Right.
But everybody is not there. And why, just not to get off to go off the deep end and keep on what we're talking about, why people don't like being accountable. Even when it just kind of puts me in a mindset when, in the word he speaks about how people are not gonna want to endure sound doctrine.
Right.
They're gonna have itching ears.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, it's all about what makes them feel good. All about how is this gonna benefit me? It's all about me. And I feel like people don't want to be held accountable because they don't want to lose that me.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
They don't want to make that change over. Because when you start being held accountable, it's no longer about you.
Right.
It's about, of course, it's gonna revolve you because you gotta grow. But as long as you don't be accountable, it's about you.
Mm-hmm.
You ain't gotta worry about nobody saying nothing to you because it's about you.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about me. When you accountable, it's no longer about you. So I feel like people don't want to be held accountable is because they don't want to let go of that me.
Yeah. Yeah.
They want to hold on to that me so bad. They want to be like, you know what? This makes me feel good. This makes me feel so like it boosts my whatever it does for them. It edifies them.
Yeah.
But they don't grow. You stay in that once. That's like you say you like to be outside. So let's say you plant the wrong seed,
Mm-hmm.
and you do everything, but that seed do not grow. That's you don't put it in the right soil, you done did all that, but it won't grow. What, and you like, what am I doing? And then you blaming the ground because it's not growing. But you didn't take the time to look like that's the wrong seed.
Yeah.
That seed ain't gonna grow.
Right.
that seed ain't gonna grow. You done put a pebble in the ground. And that's so true. These people be putting seeds in the ground thinking it's gonna grow, but it's like it's not gonna grow. It's gonna stay the same.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the thing. I just had to use that analogy because you mentioned you like to be outside. I was just like, let me add this little thing here. But it's just like that's what the people don't want to do. It's like they be planning their stuff. I'm like, oh, it's gonna grow, it's gonna boom, we're gonna do that, and it's not going nowhere.
Mm-mm.
Because you're not taking the time. There's something wrong with it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not taking that time to see what's wrong with it. You keep adding to it instead of taking the time to look at it to be like, you know what? Something's not right here. And then when you look into it, you see it's the wrong seed. So then what do? You make a correction and you put the right seed. And what does it do? It grows. All because you took the time, you made it accountable, you held yourself accountable, and you made a change.
Right.
Now we gonna come off the garden perspective, and we gonna turn it over. You see that you're not growing, but instead of you adding more to it, you stop, you look at it, you see that you're not growing, you hold yourself accountable, and you make a change, and then you begin to grow, because now you're holding yourself accountable. Now you're allowing God to hold you accountable, all because you stopped and made a change.
Right.
But I feel like people don't want to do that because they like what they do, and they don't want to change. And that's the sad thing, is understanding some people just don't want that change.
Yeah.
And over time, I've gotten comfortable with understanding that, because I don't like to see anybody hurt or anything, or anybody stuck in one place. And, coming from a person that was stuck in one place for a long time, now you understand how that person felt. But it's sad when you see a person stuck in the same position and you try to do everything you can to help them, but they just refuse to do it because they just don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
That's another thing why people don't want to be held accountable, is because they don't want to be accountable.
Yeah.
They don't want to do right. They like what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the sad thing about it is, it's just people, they're going to do that forever.
Yeah.
And, you do all you can do. You pray that one day, God just open their eyes and they see it before it's too late. But that's just why people just don't want to be held accountable.
Yeah.
Oh, this kind of we just answered. Answered two questions in one question.
What's
Because
up?
I said what I said. My next question was why do you? I said why do you think it's hard for people to be accountable? We literally just said it
Yeah,
because they flesh.
man.
So what have you experienced you personally dealing with people that you could tell they're not holding themselves accountable or they haven't been around people that hold them accountable? What has been your experience with dealing with that?
Okay, so it's like it's two different not extremes, but two different positions. One person is not holding themselves accountable and not being held accountable, and the other person is.
Like what is your experience like kind of being around people that you could tell they're not being held accountable?
Mm-hmm.
So the people that act in any kind of way, what has been your experience with dealing with them and how did you handle it?
Oh, okay, I see. Okay. Um. Yeah. I've dealt with a few people. I'm trying to think. I know one example comes to mind. I think of someone, a friend of mine would call me a lot, and he would, tell me his problems, tell me what's going on, and I'd be, I would try to offer some help or just try to, give him a little bit of advice. But then next week, 2 weeks later, we call him with the same problems, and it's always someone else's fault. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, dealing with that, you kind of see that, and it's like, well, there's a way for you to get out of this, right? There's a way to get out, but you don't want to take the way out. And then we going back because you dropping gems too. Back to what you're saying, some people just don't want to change. And I learned that some people who I deal with who don't hold themselves accountable or who aren't being held accountable or who don't want to be held accountable is because they like where they are. Some people, that saying goes, misery loves company. And some people they just like being miserable. Like, I'm sorry. That's just, I've encountered people like that. They just like being sad. They like being in their feelings. They like having other people feel sorry for them and they want you to feel sorry for them. But it comes to a time where it's like, hey, there's a way out. Hold yourself accountable. Look at what you can do to get out the situation. It always isn't so-and-so's fault. Just remove yourself from it. Just do this, do that. So when dealing with people like that, they gotta want the help. They gotta want the accountability. And then that's when, I kind of learn, like you're saying, not everyone wants to learn. Not everyone wants to grow. Not everyone wants to be held accountable. So whenever I personally get around people who are like that and they're not receptive, I just have to use wisdom. I just hold my tongue. I don't say anything. Because, I mean, at this point, the Most High is going to have to deal with them. And, there's nothing I can really do or say that will change that person's mind. So I just, I'm there to listen to people. And sometimes I might need to be wise in how I use my time because some people, suck your energy. But for the most part, I try to be there for other people. I try to listen, offer as much support as I can. But some people just don't want to be held accountable. And when I deal with those people, I just observe the same patterns. I observe that they go through the same things. And I observe that, they suffer your actions because your actions speak louder than your words. So I don't, it becomes irrelevant if you start saying, oh, I want to change. I want my life to be better. Well, if you're going through the same things, if people have told you, if we've talked and I'm trying to help, if you know what to do and you don't do it, you don't want to change. I don't care. It doesn't matter what you say. You don't want to change. So when I see that pattern and not accepting accountability and they don't want to change, I pick my hands up. I'm like, okay. And, it takes me back to what Christ said. He said, if they don't receive these words, dust off your feet and move on. Don't cast your pearls among swine. Not trying to say that to be pretentious, but I'm saying that in the sense of if people don't want to change, leave them alone. Makes me think of Revelation 22:11. I keep this in the back of my head. It says, he who is holy, let him be holy still. He who is righteous, let him be righteous still. And then he who is wicked, let him be wicked still. So it makes me think about a lot of people, whatever thought pattern you put yourself in, you allow yourself to get in, whatever you start sowing into excessively, it's a snowball effect. And who you are at that point, you're really going to keep going and continue to be that way. So if you're trying to be righteous, if you're trying to do the right thing, if you're trying to improve your life, you're going to be accountable. and you're going to accept that accountability at some point down the line. But if not, then you're just going to stay there. You're going to stay stagnant, and you're going to stay who you are, how you are. So yeah, that's my experience with that.
That is, again, like I said, we here, we on one accord. Cause I mean, I had a little bit worse experience than that. I have two kind
Okay.
of, but I'm gonna speak about the more one that taught me a lot. Like I said, baby cries very new, very fair, very kind of new to a territory, whatever, with everything. And I dealt with somebody who was no accountability, but also had an entitlement to them.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I wouldn't say that's the most difficult people to deal with, but at the time for me, coming from to a person, like I said, I'm very brutally honest,
Mm-hmm.
very brutally honest. So if anything, I have got a lot better with learning how to say things. It's not about the message, it's the delivery and the tone of the message.
Right.
So I've gotten a lot better with making sure how I say things is not coming off disrespectful, and then I'm also respecting the other person. But this particular time, we being real, right? We keeping it real.
Mm-hmm.
So this particular day, I encountered a young woman that was very, very entitled, and it really disturbed me to understand how she thinks. And sometimes you gotta just let people talk,
Yeah.
to understand fully who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And she, like, I never had a one-on-one conversation with her, and just like I said, I just think about the words that how a tree bears its fruits.
Mm-hmm.
You know what type of tree it is by the fruits it bears. That's what I was trying to get. So I could tell she wasn't the type of person that practiced accountability. I could tell,
Mm-hmm.
just because of the way she carried herself. I could tell. And I'm just like, before I judge her, before I make my assumptions, let me just try to get to know her, understand why she is the way she is. Sometimes it don't need to get to that point, but it's just I had a conversation with her, and she just had this entitlement. She made a comment which, like, my mom and dad never taught me that, so I'm not gonna do it. I feel like that's beneath me.
Mm.
And that rubbed me the wrong way, because as a person, I was always taught, you work hard for what you get.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? you put your, like, I was never taught that.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
and it blew my mind to think people really think like this, because I've never dealt with that.
Yeah.
And it just, when she said that, it just rubbed me the wrong way. And I'm being real. I said some things, I didn't cuss her out. I did say some explicit words to her that I shouldn't have used, but it just kind of, like, it put me, like, I'm like, okay, you clearly haven't been checked, so I'm gonna check you.
Mm.
So I was just like, who you think you are talking about some, this is beneath you? What you mean? How you think your parents got to what they got? They had to cook and clean, do some stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
What you mean? So it's just like, when I tell you, it blew my mind. It was just so crazy. And like I said, I checked her. I felt like I should have done it, because I can't check somebody, and I wasn't at the right place at the time to check her. But I checked her, because I was just like, hold on, girl, no. You can't grow up thinking like this, thinking like you can't touch a broom, like you can't touch a mop. What you what?
Mm-mm.
Don't no man want that.
Mm-mm. Who you think you
Don't
is?
no man want that. No man want that. Point blank, period. He may say you ain't gotta cook, you ain't gotta clean. No. Eventually he like, you ain't gonna pick up no broom.
Mm.
Like, he going out working. You got to give him something to come home to.
Mm.
He don't want to eat out every day.
Oh.
He don't want that. He like, you don't know how to make no eggs. You don't know how to make no toast. Like, like, it's just, oh
Man.
that was a good laugh.
Yeah.
That was a really, oh,
That was good.
it just blew my, let me get back. Yeah, but like I said, this is the real us. We being real. But like I said, just to bring back to, like, yeah, so I dealt with a woman that, she had an entitlement along with not being held accountable. And it's also the way she spoke to people, the way she did things.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so much I took from that. And, I worked with this person. And, one thing, it really challenged me to understand that, like I said, Christ has to deal with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in so much agreement with what you said about in Revelation. And it's just like, now you giving me something to keep in my mind, they gonna do what they gonna do.
Mm-hmm.
But with her, I'm just like, you know what? I also take it back to like that's what she was taught. That's her foundation.
Right.
Like I said, like, and I also, it's in her heart, and like the heart is so important. Whatever out of your heart is gonna flow the issues of life.
Right. Exactly.
So whatever's in your heart is gonna come out.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, that is rooted in her.
Yeah.
So her parents have instilled in her, this is how it's supposed to be. We go take care of you. We gotta cook. You ain't gotta clean. You ain't gotta do nothing. But I feel like it only hurted her because when she got into the real world, where there's real expectations, there's real consequences for not doing, not being held accountable. She didn't know what to do.
Yeah. Yep.
If anything, she crumbled.
Yeah.
And like I sat there and watched her crumble. And like, there's nothing that I could have done to prevent that. I mean, I tried talking to her. Like I said, that last conversation we had, that was like our first and only time we had a conversation. Like I said, of course, work, we cordial, hey, bye, and everything else. But like
right.
That one conversation we had, that was the only conversation we had. Because like I said, I let her have it. We being real, I let her have it. And I grew so much from that because I understood, I can't be the judge, the jury, and the executioner.
Mm-hmm.
It's not my job. I can't judge her. That's not my job. Only God can do that.
Right.
God can get in there and fix that up. Mm-hmm. God can get in there and begin to deal with her heart. And I learned from that. It's like, stop taking that into my own hands. Let them do what they do. And like, if the sad thing about it is, even after I told her that, and I told her, that's not the mindset you want to have. Mm-hmm. And I went into different reasons on why. She still came back with the answer. It was like, I don't feel like, why do you have to do all that? Like, if anything, she questioned how I was raised. No. It made it seem like the way my parents did, like I suffered because my parents raised me to be accountable and raised me with standards and morals and principles. So if anything, like I said, I just relate to it so much because it's just like they gonna do what they gonna do.
Yeah.
And like that experience alone just taught me so much. It's like I said, it's so much in there, but it just taught me alone to like, even when you try to do your part. And as long as you do what God tells you to do, that's all that really matters. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not saying God told me to say everything else. I said, no, he definitely didn't tell me that. That was my flesh. I was frustrated that day too. So like I said, I let her have it. That was definitely not, what God wanted me to do, go off of her like that. But like I said, at that particular day, like I said, I was frustrated. Like, I'm not gonna blame myself because, like I said, I feel like I definitely could have held it. I could have handled the conversation a lot better. Mm-hmm. I could have went to her a lot differently. I shouldn't have went to her like that. And that, like I said, with being real, mm-hmm. I should have went to her differently. I should have, approached her when I was calmed down. But at that point, I had let stuff build up, stuff that she wasn't doing, that I was catching the slack on. And when you get burnt out by trying to do somebody else's stuff, you can easily get frustrated.
Yeah.
Easily get frustrated. So, like I said, that day I let her have it because I was fed up being the maid. I was tired of it. I said, here I am over here washing floors and doing all this stuff, and you ain't touched now broom or dust. You finna get it today. Yeah. But you finna get this today. But like I said, even after all that, and I calmed down, and I went and I approached her and I apologized because at the end of the day, I am representing Christ now. But at that time, I was really, it hurt me harder because like I said, I was a baby in Christ, very new. And, I was like, man, I really messed up. Let me go back and let me try to fix this. Mm-hmm. So even when I went back and apologized to her and I said, I was just trying to get over to you that it's not beneficial because you're not doing your part. It affects everybody else. Mm-hmm. And it's only hurting you. Because this is going to be the expectation further on. And there's a lot of people that's more harsh than what I am.
Right. Yeah.
And there's more severe consequences in real life.
Yeah.
and your work experience is supposed to teach you real life experiences.
Yeah.
I said, this is just a stepping stone for you or whatever you want to do in your life. I said, but there's more severe consequences than this. And like I said, she came back with the answer, like just questioning how I was raised and why did I feel that way I did. But that's a whole nother conversation. But if anything, like I said, it just teaches you to not only to let God be the person to deal with them. Do your part. If he's charged you to talk to him, talk to him. Don't do what I did. Don't blow out the handle.
No.
Don't let it build out. Don't do that.
Mm-mm.
But if he's charged you to help to try to hold somebody accountable, do that. But like you said, don't put so much time and energy into it
Mm-hmm.
to where it drains you. And you ain't got, like I said, I was drained at this point. So there was nothing filling me back up.
Yeah.
So you can't let somebody just drain you because you put so much into them trying to make them get the point, make them understand it, trying to really pour over to them to let them like, hey, you got to be accountable, you got to do this, and if they just don't want to get it, and also if they're not at the place to receive it,
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
because I feel like everybody had their moment. God saved us each at individual times.
Yes.
God deals with us in His own timing, and it's in that right time when their eyes come open. Like I said, you've planted the seed. You've given them, and some people that you may encounter may be the only Bible, the only thing they may encounter. That's spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
So once you've planted your seed, let God do your best, and let God do the rest.
Amen.
We gonna leave it there.
Mm-hmm.
Do your best. Get it over to Him. If God has told you now, don't go over here saying you heard this too. If God has told you to do it, because people taking stuff and they run with it
Oh,
now.
oh yeah.
They take it and they run with it. If God has told you to do something, do it. Do your best and let Him do the rest.
Amen. That's it.
Don't that we're gonna leave it there. Do your best and let God do the rest. But that is gonna conclude our conversation about accountability. We hope we said something to just touch you. And if anything you just heard, if you just coming into the show, to hear something, hopefully you could take this and share it with somebody else, or maybe this helps you look at yourself and feel like what things are you doing to help hold you accountable. Hopefully it help you reassess. What's the word I'm looking for?
Assess yourself.
Yes, there it is. I
Mm-hmm.
said helps you like reassess yourself, help you look at yourself a little bit more. Whatever this may be for you, we're just grateful that you were able to be here with us and hear the show. Thank you, Jordan, so much for coming on and just sharing your viewpoints and being so open about your experiences. It takes a lot of people to, it takes really good guts and bravery to want to do that. And I just applaud you. And I just, for you to be such at a young age, just so vocal about your faith and just so vocal about your experiences, it's really refreshing to hear.
All praises to the Most High. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much. And also, thank you guys for tuning in. You guys also follow me on my social media. You can follow me on Instagram at the real Makayla __. Jordan, do you have any social media that you want to share or put out there?
Shoot. No. You know what? I don't. I'm not really out there on social media. I got Facebook. I don't use it that often, but I don't know. I guess if you want to get to me, you can reach through Makayla, and she'll let me know.
That's right. You guys want to have any questions for him, or you guys just want to, just thank him, feel free to share it to me. Also, you guys go follow the real Makayla. Not the I'm sorry, the Just Keep It Real podcast. On Instagram is the same name, the real Just Keep It Real podcast, and you can follow that on Instagram. Also, you guys can follow me on my YouTube at the Real One TV. A lot of good things coming out is going to be posted up. But thank you guys so much for just tuning in to the show. I really greatly appreciate it. Thank you guys for being with me on this journey. Starting with season 2, it's a lot of great things. So I got a lot of great topics. We had one great amazing guest on here, but we have another set of amazing guests that's going to come on and just share their experiences. And we're all this is all for the kingdom, all for the glory edifying of Christ. And everything's just gonna be, just praying that God has His hands on it all. But thank you guys so much for just being here and tuning in. Make sure y'all like, share, and subscribe. Share this video out. Even at your comments, what was your most favorable part? Us laughing about our experiences, or like just whatever stuck out to you. Feel free to put that in the comment section below. And the next episode should be coming out really, really soon. Y'all stay tuned. Make sure y'all tune in to my Instagram. I'll be posting a lot of updates about the show, as well as on the Just Keep It Real podcast Instagram. I'll be posting a lot of updates. But thank you guys for tuning in. And again, Jordan, thank you so much for being here with us today and just sharing your experiences. And guys, Jordan, before we close, is there anything else you would like to say or add before we close out the show?
I'm just gonna say, stay strong. It says in Proverbs, a righteous man falls 7 times, but gets back up again. So it's not easy. We all mess up. We all fall, but it's not how you start; it's how you finish. So I'll be praying for everybody, and yeah, let's finish strong, y'all. We're almost there. We see the signs of the times. Let's do it. Let's lock in for the kingdom.
That's it. That's what it's all about, y'all. That is what it's all about. And you know what, guys, just like you said, just stay strong. It's not gonna be easy, but remember, there's two people that you will, just look at the side you're on. Whose side would you rather be on when that time comes? You want to be on God's side, or do you want to be on the enemy side? But and just make sure you holding yourself accountable. Take what we said, and just really try to look at yourselves. But we're not gonna hold you guys anymore. Let's again thank you guys for just tuning in. Make sure you guys just stay real, and also remember, be you. Don't let nobody else change you. If somebody want to change you, then they're not for you. Stay safe, stay prayed up, and always just keep it real.